Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath has been one of the most intriguing and in-depth books I have ever read. I honestly could authenticate this book as one of the most brilliantly written books I have apprehended in my lifetime. Basically, the background of this book is a girl named Esther is having trouble overcoming depression. The brink of her mental illness was when she won a fashion magazine contest and was awarded with getting to spend her entire summer in New York. There, she started thinking she was not special anymore because of the 11 other girls who had also won. Over time, her depression progressed to where she was attempting suicide and even cutting herself. Then she was moved from hospitals to private hospitals and made a recovery. Throughout this book, there were many interruptions and instances that made her recovery process slow down and take longer, like Doreen's cynical behavior, Buddy's meddling with her mind, Joan's perfection, and many more. What was so fascinating about this book was that Sylvia Plath could interpret all past moments in her life to a reviving novel. Her use of similes and different comparisons of figurative language to relate to someone's everyday life in the most brilliant and clever of ways was absolutely astonishing. In this book, there was also a protagonist. The protagonist had been Esther Greenwood, a girl suffering from a bad case of depression. There were also many antagonists. The antagonists could be the girls from the contest, especially Doreen. They made Esther feel like she was not special or like the only one to win the contest. Doreen's behavior also made Esther feel like she wanted to admire her and be like her. Joan, another antagonist, was beating Esther in everything. In the novel, it stated that she beat Esther to the bell size, she beat Esther to getting Buddy, and Esther hated her for that. Esther was also shocked when Joan hung herself because she was supposed to be getting better and almost being let out. The main conflict of the story was that Esther was battling with depression and could not find her way out. The organization and structure of the novel The Bell Jar was also very interesting. In the middle of some chapters, when Esther needed a scenario to connect with her background information, she would use a flashback. One of the examples of flashbacks would be when she was explaining how Buddy was a hypocrite. She had to tell how and why he was, and that was the day the baby was born. Buddy had told her that he had slept with somebody else and other than her, and he had a completely other identity, which made her think that he was a hypocrite. Also many strengths and weaknesses within this novel. One of the strengths was how she pieced everything together and made the reader get so into it, like me. When reading this book, I felt like I was Esther and I desired to go on. It also taught kids about what could happen from depression. And it was great how it was meant for college level but could be read by 8th grade honor students on a higher level of thinking. Some of the weaknesses within this novel was just the random flashbacks, which kind of confused me. But that might just be because I'm an 8th grade honor student. Other than that, I don't believe there were any other weaknesses within this novel. Symbolism is the practice of representing things by symbols or of investing things with a symbolic meaning or character. There were many instances of symbolism within the book The Bell Jar. One of the uses of symbolism would be the babies, which represented a new life, and Esther did not want to get pregnant. On pages 65 to 67, she watched the baby born and realized Buddy was a huge hypocrite, which was a very important part of the novel. Another symbol that occurred in symbolism would be the bell jar. Esther felt that she was living in a bell jar and could not get out, and as much as she tried, she could not get it open. As for Esther's progression of her mental illness, it wasn't going very well. She started feeling like she was worthless. Every second of the day, she worried about her health and didn't know what to do. It all started at the magazine contest when she saw 11 other girls doing the same exact thing that she was. She felt negative and even attempted suicide and cutting herself. Then she went back and forth to different hospitals and got better, or at least improved. After a while, she looked at life as if she was never going to get out of her bell jar, and she just had to deal with it. The mental health system as it appears in the novel is very unique. There are 3 different hospitals which you go to depending on your illness. The first hospital, which would be the best, was where people get better and are let go, called Belsize. Joan, Dee Dee, and Esther ended up going there too. Kaplan, where Esther first started out, was middle and where people most start off, where they're suffering but still need care. Where Valerie and Esther met, and Valerie didn't want to leave because she had lobotomy. The worst one was Wymark. It was for seriously bad cases like Miss Norris, where she could not even speak or move. She was just negative. Wymark was where the bad people go, not exactly bad, but really bad in illness, and they just need serious help. As where Bell Size was the complete opposite, where people start being let go. The settings of the novel also told a lot. One of the settings was Bell Size, and it portrayed the side of Esther where she was getting better, and she realized that she had improvement. She started off a change, and it truly showed how she differed from the beginning of the novel until then. Another setting would be with the hospital with Buddy when she realized he was a hypocrite and had another identity. When we saw the baby born, she really thought she liked him, but then again, when she asked him about him having an affair with somebody over with that waitress over the summer, she thought he was a hypocrite overall. Since then, she couldn't stand him. As stated on page 70 of the novel, Esther asks, have you ever gone to bed with anyone? Buddy replied, well, yes, I have. Then she says, I almost fell over. From the first night Buddy Willard kissed me and said I must go out with a lot of boys, he made me feel I was much more sexy and experienced than he was, and that everything he did, like hugging and kissing and petting, was simply what I had made him feel like doing out of the blue, and he couldn't help it and didn't know how it came about. Now I saw he only had been pretending all this time to be so innocent. And then he explained how over the summer, this waitress had come onto him at Cape Cod. She stated, I want you. And he replied, served up with parsley? She said, no, some night. And that's how Buddy had lost his pureness and his virginity. He said he couldn't remember, but a couple times a week for the rest of the summer, which meant 30. After that, Esther realized that he had a true other identity, and he was trying to hide it from her, which made her realize he was a hypocrite, which also had a really big impact on the novel. The last setting would be her basement when she tried taking the pills to end her life. She found them in her mother's drawer, as stated on page 168 of the novel, and she tried explaining how there were more than 50 and more than she hoped. On page 169, she said, at first nothing happened, but as I approached the bottom of the bottle, red and blue lights began to flash before my eyes. The bottle slid from my fingers and I lay down. Esther, that's how she got into the hospital. That's how she was first brought into the hospital, and if that had not happened, who knows where she would have been. A woman's role during that time period was not very far from what she is right now. The women were said to cook, clean, take care of the kids, while the men did what they pleased and pursued their career. Like the stereotype saying of, go make me a sandwich, Plath is trying to say that women were more than that and deserved higher respect. Women were not just meant to go serve men food and let them do what they want. She showed that Esther wanted not to get married or have kids for the heck of it. She should pursue their careers if they really wanted to. Women, these days, are allowed much more respect than they have back in the day. They are not just meant for cooking and cleaning. Yes, sure, they still do that. But they're not actually meant to go make men sandwiches, so to say. To discuss if Esther is ready to leave the hospital or not, I actually think she is. Esther came a long way ever since she started, but she should still be checked on once in a while. But if the interview accepts her, she must be okay to work and leave. She's established that she won't get out of the bell jar, and she's learned from that. But I believe that she's progressed with the shock treatments and everything that went on. I think that she should be able to leave the hospital. And as for what the future holds, that's up to Esther. She could write or go to college or do whatever she wants once she recovers. However, her mental illness should really handle that for themselves. Finally, my overall view of this book was actually pretty interesting. For a college-level book that demands difficult, higher-level thinking, and for an 8th grade honor student to be able to read it, the tone, voice, and message were fantastic. In my opinion, even though I normally don't read books like this, Bell Jar grasped my attention like no other. I didn't want to stop. Overall, it was an outstanding book. The way that the author connected all these different similes and personification to things that normally you wouldn't amazed me. Overall, this book had been a great read. And there you have it. The Bell Jar is one of the most in-depth and intriguing books I've ever read. And you should too.